educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
Thank you very much for tuning in today. I appreciate you listening. I have a very energetic interviewee today. She is the founder of Dollar Divas, a money coaching company that supports female entrepreneurs or mompreneurs who need financial assistance with their businesses. Well, you know, fellas, some of us could use the same ideas too, right? But with more than 12 years of experience, Jen has mastered the psychology of money, the step-by-step process of growing a business, and the art of creating financial stability. You know, this can help anyone from a 2-year-old to a 92-year-old. All of us can develop a better sense of responsibility and a better relationship with the idea of money. I thank y'all for listening today, and I welcome to the microphone, Jen Patterson. Jen, thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for having me. Sure, no problem. So you know, you're the founder of Dollar Divas, and you know, when I think about that, I think about dollar stores and, you know, just a better way of managing my money or spending my money instead of trying to go into store, you know, major name brand stores, spending bunches of money and things like that. But I think what it comes down to in that is my true relationship with money. And I think a lot of us are not aware of what that really is or what that feels like. So if I asked you, Jen, how should I look at my relationship towards money and how I spend it, keep it, save it, things like that?
Your relationship with money is really, really juicy. I like to use that word juicy because there's a lot there. And the thing when it comes to finances, it's something that we all deal with, but a lot of us stick our head in the sand and kind of do the ostrich thing and go la 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 la, and really just kind of hope it fixes itself. And I can guarantee you, I would bet anything I own on it, it's not going to fix itself.
Right.
It's like anything else. You have to pay attention to it. You have to focus on it if you want things to change. When it comes to our relationship with money, usually I like to start with, like, how were you raised around money? And we all have our internal thoughts and beliefs and values around money, whether we're aware of them or not. And usually those stem from our upbringing. So, you know, how did your parents talk about money? How did they talk to you about money? How were financial decisions made in your household? What were some of your earliest money memories? And like all of that, as we age, tends to become our inner voice and that little subconscious, being inside of us that really is steering the ship. And those same patterns that showed up in our childhood will show up again in adulthood over and over and over again. And if you take a step back and look at it, it usually becomes pretty clear pretty quickly what those patterns are. But most of us, because you can't see the forest through the trees, we end up, repeating those same patterns knowingly or unknowingly throughout our adulthood, unless you can take the time, step back and go, okay, what's happening here? What's going on with my money? What's going on with me and my relationship with my finances? And that's really kind of the step one, is just acknowledging the fact that you need to do the work.
So you mentioned about our upbringing. I listened to, I did my homework. And so I believe in somewhere you was in an interview and you spoke about family members talking about finances around a dinner table, how they were or were not spoken about as we were growing up. I mean, I was born in 1976, so I didn't have that, financial talk, that those speeches on how to invest, where to spend my money, and to look at how my money can make money for me. I didn't have those type of conversations, so how important is it from that, this base that we have from family, how important is that for how we grow today and even encourage our children, our nieces and nephews and things like that? How important is that to change that narrative?
Oh my gosh, so important, because you are not the outlier, you're the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Very few of us, particularly in sort of the ones who were born 70s, 80s, 90s,
Right.
parents didn't talk about money because it was seen as rude. It was
Right.
seen as, just unappealing. You didn't want to talk about money. It's like, oh, no, you don't talk about that. And if it
Mm-hmm.
was ever discussed, it was in these sort of vague kind of terms. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of us came to adulthood just sort of going, well, I guess we'll see what happens. And, not knowing that money can make money. And the most powerful thing in the world is compounding, and how to really take advantage of compounding and how it works, and all of these various details. And I always sort of think back to my early days at university when you'd walk up, it's like Frosh Week and you're all excited, and there's a table at the front of, everything that's like, here, I'll give you a Frisbee if you open a credit card. Like, 18-year-old me is like, woohoo, free Frisbee, right? That was most of our financial educations, like, not great.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so important to talk to your kids about this stuff. And I know, I'm a mom. I'm a mom, so I'm not a bomb. I'm a mom. And I get that, kids are like, yeah, okay, mom, whatever. Like, I've definitely got the eye roll from my 7-year-old when I sort of try and talk about these things. But at the same time, I'm hoping that if I talk about it enough, something's going to sink in, and that when the time comes, as she ages and can start doing these things on her own and start making these decisions, she's going to be more armed, because she's going to at least understand the terminology. It's going to be familiar to her, because, my husband and I, we talk about our finances in front of our kids all the time, because we want them to have that ammunition when they go out in the world and have to deal with this stuff on their own, to be able to, understand what people are saying when they're talking about compounding, when they're talking about interest, and how all that works. Because it can be very overwhelming if you don't understand even just the language, but also trying to teach your kids the concepts. It's sort of like handing a 16-year-old the keys to a car without giving them driving lessons. Like, someone's gonna, figure it out and do okay, but someone's gonna wrap that thing around a tree. And, most people aren't even gonna get it going.
Right.
So, you have to help your kids out and teach them these things, because our society is built around money.
Right.
We have to deal with, whether we like it or not, we have to deal with it. And whether or not you want to build huge wealth, or you just want to function without stress, you still need to handle money. And making money and managing money, they're two different skill sets. So both of them need to be taught.
So, what would someone need to do to start to develop a growth mindset towards developing, great financial strategies to just get things settled first before we get into, like you said, making money? We need to get stable in certain situations. So how do we start to develop that growth mindset, and what strategies do we need to get to?
When you're talking about money, notice the words you're using. That's the very first step, because quite often a lot of us will say things and it reinforces internal beliefs that aren't serving you and are not going to help you really grow and develop financial freedom and stability. So quite often things you'll hear like, I'm broke, I'm bad with money, I can't afford it, right? Like, these are all very common phrases. You look at any, big media, they make being broke a big joke. They, it's the punchline, and, it's funny and cute to be broke. And so rewiring some of those internal beliefs starts with your language. So how are you speaking about the way you handle money? Is it I'm broke, or is it I'm choosing to spend my resources on other things? Is it I can't afford it, or I'm actively choosing not to buy, a vacation in Mexico, and then instead I'm choosing to pay my rent.
Right.
Because that's starting to take the power back into your hands and out of the hands of the money, because you don't want the money making the decisions. You want to be in the power position of making the choice. Is it an obvious choice? I think so. I like to have a home as much as I would love to go and, jet off to Mexico, and I could use my mortgage payment to do that.
Right.
I'm not going to, because I like my house.
Right.
I like having somewhere to come home to. So, while we may feel like we don't have decisions or we don't have options, we don't have choices,
Mhm.
we do. They're just really, really obvious. But
Right.
it's a matter of taking that power back for yourself and saying, I'm choosing to
Mm.
maintain my mortgage rather than be irresponsible and go off to Mexico. You know, those sorts of things. And you know, on the other side of the coin of, you know, I'm bad with money. I hate math. I don't like
Mhm.
dealing with it. It's overwhelming. It's stressful. And, you know, a lot of money gurus will tell you just tell yourself you're good with money. Just say, you know, you're good with money. Say
Mhm.
that in your mirror, you know, those affirmations. And the struggle I have with that sort of thinking
Mm.
is there's always a little voice in the back of your head that's like, nah, no, you're not.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's you're full of it. You're not good with money. You're not good at math. What are you talking about? So instead of trying to go from one extreme to the other, just take a
Mhm.
little baby step. Say to yourself,
Mm.
I'm improving my relationship with money. I'm working on getting better with money. I'm learning
Mm.
about money because that's going to be true.
Mhm.
Whether you're one step along the journey or you've been at it for 6 years, the statement will always be true of
Mm.
I'm working on my relationship with money. I'm learning about money. I'm trying to be better with money. Because you're never going to be perfect. I mean,
Right, right.
money is a topic that you can study literally your entire life and
Mhm.
still only crack the surface.
Right.
So no matter how far along the journey you are, you're always going to be telling yourself the truth. And so that little subconscious voice in the back of your mind is going to be quieted,
Mhm.
and it's going to start realizing that not only now are you learning about money, but you're actually getting a lot better at it. And
Mhm.
you're making more intentional decisions rather than letting the money drive the show.
So you made a comment or a statement about the runoff to Mexico. So how do I not run off to Mexico when everyone is showing me their plates? Everyone is showing me, you know, you know, things like that. Where hey, you know, I'm going to Mexico. I did this trip. I'm Punta Cana and Barbados and all these fabulous places. Maldives. You know, you hear about all these places and you're not, especially when you're not sure how they're getting there, because everyone is not spending the straight $10,000. They're finding other ways to get there. So, how would you encourage someone to not be so influenced by what they see by their friends who are, or social media influencers by these plates or the hula hoops or whatever it might be? So, how would you
Mhm.
encourage someone to keep their money in their pocket?
First of all, you have to remember that what you see on social media, whether it be somebody that you actually know in person or an influencer,
Mm-hmm.
is like maybe a third of the puzzle, and that's being generous.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people will show you what they want you to see.
Mm-hmm.
And most often you're right, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe that person who is, you know, jetting off to Vegas and Mexico and, you know, the Maldives and whatever, they might be digging themselves a financial pit that they'll never get
Mm-hmm.
out of. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know what's going on there. Or maybe they have some relative that's just like, I've got, you know, a
Right.
timeshare here,
You're
and
right.
I work for
You're
an
right.
airline and you can fly for free. Like, you never really know what is driving the bus in
Mm-hmm.
terms of how they're making these things happen. And if it's a close friend of yours, I'm fully supportive of saying, hey, how are you paying for all of this? Like, share your wisdom. You know, maybe there's some magical wondrous thing that you're not aware of that they can
Mm-hmm.
share with you, then absolutely. But when it comes to things like influencers, I can tell you that like 99% of what you're seeing is pure garbage.
Mm.
It's pure garbage.
Mhm.
So if that's something that you're feeling, that FOMO, that like, oh, I wish I could, step one is just unfollow. Get rid of them. Don't bring it into your universe, because it really is, it can be really detrimental to your mental health,
Mhm.
particularly if you're focused on other goals.
Hmm.
And instead of, you know, focusing on what you don't have, focus on what you're working toward. And
Mhm.
if your goal is to pay down debt, or if your goal is to buy a house, or, you know, whatever it is that you are striving toward,
Mhm.
make that your focus. So, you know, when it comes to influencers, there are literally people out there doing every single possible thing you can imagine. So if you're
Mhm.
wanting to pay down debt, go find influencers who are paying down debt.
Mhm.
If you're wanting to travel more, go find influencers who are sharing not just their travel, but like how they're making it happen, and the behind, you know, the behind the scenes, because those are
Right.
out there too. There's some fabulous travel influencers who
Mhm.
will say, this is how I paid for this holiday and this is how I made this happen. And they will literally break it down for you.
Hmm.
So find those people. So find the people who are doing what you want to do and are sharing not only the experience, but also the process of how they're making that happen. And so what that's going to do is, first of all, it's going to get rid of the garbage and it's going to help you with your mental health, but it's also maybe going to give you some strategies or some ideas that you may not have thought of that could help you speed up what it is you're trying to accomplish.
So as we're talking about mental health, sometimes we don't understand what our pain points are to get over the hump. Sometimes we don't know what's really holding us back, what our true roadblocks are. So, sometimes we get a little, we're not as encouraged to find those things to get over to the next place. There, well, where we see these influences are, sometimes we don't want to deal with what's within. So how would you encourage someone? What steps would you give someone to get over their pain point, to be able to maybe live even half of what they feel as though the influencers are doing?
Absolutely. And it can be really hard to take a look at yourself and to really dig in. And some of those, I call them money blocks. I mean, you can call them whatever you want, but that thing that's holding you back, you may not even be aware of it. You may not even be aware that it's happening because it might be some deep-seated value or belief in your subconscious that may have stemmed from like maybe your childhood. Maybe somebody said something to you offhand. I know one that I had to battle as an adult was I felt like I needed to be cared for because I was the youngest in my family. I was the youngest cousin. Like I was the baby of the family. And my whole childhood was full of who's taking care of Jenny?
Really?
Who's taking care of Jenny? And so as an adult, I really have had to consciously work on the fact that I am an adult. I don't need to be taken care of. I can take care of myself, and so maybe there's something like that has shown up for you as an adult that was a recurring theme as a kid. And so the way to become more aware of that is to take some time and just be quiet. I know that's hard, especially as a parent. Believe me, I understand quiet time is at a premium here.
Right.
But, take some time. My favorite thing to do is you set a timer for 10 minutes.
Okay.
And you get a piece of paper, ideally not like a computer, but like a full piece of paper and a pen, and just put money at the top and start writing and see what comes out. Don't censor yourself. This isn't grammatically correct. You're not turning it in for marks. It doesn't have to be anything pretty. You can misspell everything. Like just let the thoughts flow. And then after 10 minutes, go get up, fold some laundry, do some dishes. Do not turn on a screen. Like step away from the screens, do something mindless, go for a walk, walk your dog, whatever, for another 10 minutes. And then come back to your paper and spend another 10 minutes writing anything else that's come up. So usually in that 10-minute sort of break period, you'll find that the things that you wrote down will kind of percolate, some new thoughts will pop up, and just see what comes out. And I've done this with so many of my clients in the past. Like it's literally the first thing we do when they, come and knock on my door is I make them do this exercise. And the aha moments that come out of it, like I have never had this fail ever in my entire career. I've never had this fail. And so just be curious. So this isn't about blaming, and it's not about, oh, I wish, shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's just about being curious and seeing what comes up. And then once you have that information, read it back to yourself a couple of times and see if there's anything in there that might give you some indication on like what's happening currently that you might be bumping up against, whether it's, always having debt, or you feeling like there's never enough money, or you can never quite figure out how to pay yourself, or your bills, you can never quite get to paying them on time, or whatever it is for you, or maybe you always want to invest, but you can't seem to figure out what step one is, like all of these things that hold us back financially. Like maybe there's something in your history that is showing up and that's sort of, holding you from taking that next step.
So I just want everyone to understand what Jen is saying. She is helping you prepare a vision, right? Vision board, things like that. But ultimately, she's also talking about her roadmap that's actually on her website. So, Jen, can you please let everyone know where can they find this roadmap and reach out to you and find out how you can help them get onto the right place and clear up their vision?
Absolutely. So the Simple Money Roadmap is my signature coaching program. You can check out all the information on my website, dollardivas.org. And with the roadmap, this is literally what we do. We start with where you're at. We dig into your history. We talk about, how were you raised with money? We do all these really eye-opening exercises. And I mean, what I've described is just one of the ones that we do. We do a whole slew of exercises. We talk about where you are, where you want to be. And we talk about how to really set intentional goals that are not just goals, they're inevitable outcomes. So we figure out how can we really get you where you want to go in a way that is simple and easy and what's the word I'm thinking of? Efficient, really efficient, because I understand business owner, mom,
right?
Time is of the essence. And, you can't always spend hours and hours and hours poring over spreadsheets and things like that. You need something that's going to work, that's going to be easy, it's going to be intuitive. And that's what I've created over years of experimentation and years of doing things wrong. This is something I found that works, and it works no matter what type of person I'm working with. I work a lot of time with artists and creative people because they generally are not as inclined to get cozy with a spreadsheet. And so, they want something that's more intuitive, that they can see in black and white. And, that's why I teach the way that I teach. And we haven't even gone into the nuts and bolts of strategy. We've just been talking, just about the mindset part of it, which is obviously a big part of the picture, but there's also a whole bunch of strategy that goes into it as well. So that not only is your mindset on track, but also your strategy is supporting what you're wanting to do as well.
Wow. I thank you very much. I thank you for coming on today. I hope everyone, you're listening to what Jen is saying. To get the strategy part, to get to the next step, please contact her. Go to her website, please. dollardivas.org. Please, please, please. Jen, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Sure, no problem. But before I let you go, I got to ask you my question that I ask everybody. My would you rather question.
All right.
Would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
Fork in the road.
Why fork in the road?
Because, you know what? I changed my mind. I have a question.
Yes.
If I have the 3 doors, does one ever get eliminated, or do I have to pick the one of 3?
So here's the thing. There are no parameters.
Is it like the Monty?
There's no parameters. There's no parameters. You create the parameters. You create the box that you're in.
Okay, so if we're talking Monty Hall, then I would choose the doors because mathematically, the thing that I want, I have a higher probability of getting if I choose the doors than if I go the 50-50.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing.
there's my analytical math brain coming out.
Because here's the thing. This particular question shows how much we limit ourselves in our thinking. I didn't give any parameters. I just asked a general question. So it's really up to you how you decide to move forward. And I think that's what helps the listeners to understand, hey, I could go left or right. I could have more options, but it depends on what my limiting beliefs are.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
I love that. That's a fabulous question. There's so much, behind, what makes, what causes people to choose either one and what their decision-making processes. That's fascinating. I may have to steal that.
And here's the thing: there's no right or wrong answer. It's all yourself. It's internal. So I think that's. I appreciate your answer. I think you kind of gave 2, but
I'm a rule breaker too. So I always like to push the boundaries a little bit and do things my own way.
But see, again, no parameters. No one said you couldn't.
It's true.
But Jen, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you for listening to That Will Never Work podcast.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?